Mic check 1 2 1 2. Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Yeah, I'm waiting on BitsBeTrippin to show up to the live stream, so I'll just chat with you guys until then. I'll be able to read your guys' chat in a second. All right, chat. All right, chat. I'm reading your guys' stuff here. Yeah, there's two of me now. There's live stream me, and then there's 4K me. I like 4K me better, I think. How about Vitalik roasting CSW? Yeah, he's late to the game. Everybody should be in on that trip, you know. If you're not, in this case, if you don't denounce people that are bad actors, then to some degree you're inviting bad acts. Thus, it's everyone's job that has a voice and an audience in the ecosystem to maintain the health and quality of the ecosystem by denouncing people that are not good. Somebody asked about the CFD token. They say, glancing through your white paper presentation, it looks like a lot of work has gone into the modeling. Do you have any customers lined up and any details on how the coin would work for miners? Well, it's the modeling part is done. I mean, the software is complete. The token and network and tokenomic stuff is not done. There's a lot of ways to do it, and I'm open to suggestions at this point on the ways people prefer. So as it stands right now, there's a job server. The job server gets jobs and then breaks them into parts, and those parts get done by miners. And the parts that get done are matrix inversion, and they're open sourced algebraic software, Fortran, etc. So, you know, if you were to run a miner, then you would just talk to our job server with an API, and then you could mine the solutions to the hard math that we give you using pretty much the binaries of your choice because they're open source. And this would create an incentive for people to improve mathematical algebra software with a token reward that caused there to be progress in SHA-256. So, you know, the same way that people found ways to do SHA-256 better because there was a token reason to do so, once this project is launched, there will be a tokenized reason to improve math open source software, which has a lot of room to improve. So it's neat that we can create a model by which people that improve an open source project actually get rewarded for doing so. I mean, that's what existing miner optimizers do, right? And then some people will close source it and make it better. If anyone of you guys wants to message Mr. BitsBeTrippin and see where he is, let me check. Yeah, whatever. If we have to, we'll do it without him. But The only reason I'm live is because he wanted to go live, so I hope he shows up. Going back to chat. Hey Richard, were you kidding the other day when you said Bitcoin at the end of the year, $20,003? Nope, not really. I mean, Wall Street's coming, and they're coming hard. So if the markets go down and people look for an uncorrelated diversification that still shows great return, Bitcoin's a great non-correlated great return. So it's I don't want to call it a hedge because there's a common misconception that hedges are supposed to move opposite. They're not supposed to move opposite. They're supposed to move differently up, right? So Bitcoin is a very useful differently up tool to diversify one's, S&P 500 platform, etc. No matter what you own, Bitcoin is probably out earning the returns, so you should have exposure to it. Furthermore, they have so much money and so much economic mass, and their ability to participate in the Bitcoin market has been so starved for so long that there's a lot of pent-up demand combined with a lot of press. I mean, the chief of the IMF came out and said, hey, this stuff's real, it's coming. Don't pretend it's not. It might take over everything. She said that. So I think on Wednesday, probably next week, if Ledger goes live, as I hear it will, Ledger X, then a lot of Wall Street money is going to come in, and there's no new sell pressure to meet it. So price should explode, combined with the fact that we've got short squeezes that'll occur due to the fork, with longs getting their fork coins instead of shorts, which is a difference in reward that changed from the BCH fork to the B2X fork. So the B2X fork rewards people that aren't short, whereas the BCH fork rewarded people who were short. And that makes a gigantic difference, particularly since we're sitting at the highest. I think we're sitting at 30,000 coins of short interest, of which only 5,000 is fully collateralized. So like there's 25,000 people that, would have to cover if the market shot up really hard. They don't have to cover, but they would want to, right? I mean, you only want to be underwater so much on your trading. So I think 6,000 in a very short time frame. I think it's down to like a week and a half now. Maybe I have to look at the timestamps. If Wall Street gets in, 6,000 is nothing at all. So I'm very comfortable making that statement. And if Wall Street gets in, 3 times 6,000 is also nothing. So I'm comfortable with that statement as well. What's up, man? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Let me see if I can fix that. I do have audio, so I think this might be on your end if you check your mic indicator. Because, yeah, I've tested in the client and you're good. So you're not transmitting audio to me. Okay, I hear you now.
All right, yeah, I just switched.
Oh, fuck, that's loud. 1 second. 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have my studio monitors off. All right, you're good now.
Sweet, there we go.
I like your bench full of mining hardware behind you, man. I love tools and I love workbenches.
Never stops.
True that, bro. So while you weren't here, I was talking to chat about my price prediction of 20,003 cents by the end of the year, and 6,000 in like a week and a half, which, we were at 5,000 without Wall Street not very long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And China can't ban again, so where's the bad news, right? And you're getting free coins from the fork, and the longs are getting paid instead of the shorts. Forget about it. And the shorts all have to cover because there's so many more of them. It's a perfect storm for price explosion as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty apparent the cat's out of the bag, right? I mean, people now are getting into it in scale, and you're getting a lot of people. I mean, hold on, I'm getting some feedback here. There we go. You start looking at like people that have never experienced or been a part of anything that has to do with like the crypto tech in general. If I go out on the street and it has nothing to do with what we do here with BitsBeTrippin, language is coming tongue out. So I think that just that and that feeds into the folks that do investment, big, not just banking, but people that do wealth management and all that other stuff. They're seeing part of it too, and the culture's changing, and when the regulation and the avenue really opens up for that stuff to really expand. I mean, it's even $20,000 valuations are probably very minimal compared to what it could get, right? I mean, from a short term, absolutely. I mean, this thing is ready to really wide open. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I just seen from all my experiences and from my vantage point in the space in general, which has a lot more to do with blockchain than it does anything to do with cryptocurrency, short of the fact of what we do here. The technology in general, it's part and parcel with the crypto. You can't talk blockchain in any of those spaces without Bitcoin coming up in the conversation. So, I mean, people are looking at it from that store value and from the usability of it. And it's just going to be one of those things that's going to expand exponentially. It's logarithmic, and it's going to go, parabolic very soon.
So there's a statement that people overestimate what can happen in 2 years, but underestimate what can happen in 5 years. And Bitcoin is a great example of something that, everyone considered as a joke, and everyone considered as a joke, and everyone considered as a joke. And now it's on CNBC every day. The cover of newspapers, the head of the IMF is talking about how it could take over everything. Everybody's trying to make their own fake copy that's destined to fail, because the same reason CompuServe and AOL failed to the truly open and distributed, easy to get in.
Dropped a bit.
So it's like it's a perfect storm, not only from a timing perspective, but from look at every single asset in the world inflating. It's fabulous. If the markets go up, people still want this higher gains here, and they've got the free money to do it because they feel rich, because they are rich, because everything's inflated. If the market goes down, they look for this uncorrelated thing. Up, we're good. Down, we're good. Forks, we're good. Every new fork that comes and Bitcoin price keeps exploding, it's like, oh, forks, they're good, not bad. Keep bringing them. Give me free coins. More free coins. Come on, baby. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of people that are are following it. I mean, and mind you, with our exposure into the space, especially with the alt currencies and stuff, the Bitcoin's always coming up from the people that have never been in part of the space, right? I mean, they're like, I want to mine, I want to do stuff, or how do I buy coins, that kind of stuff. And Bitcoin's the center. It's the centric piece that everybody goes and says, I want to get a little bit of Bitcoin, and then I'm going to do some mining in some capacity, right? And maybe try to get a lift like Bitcoin did. But what I always try to make sure that people understand is, especially in the crypto space, is that, Bitcoin's your center. You always, that irregardless of whatever news is going to happen, it's taken on. There was a point in time, maybe in 2013, 2012, that, if enough pressure came down, it could have really saturated the system. I mean, you're not ever going to stop it. I think everybody understands that. But that could have been a very big price depression and maybe put it into like a 10-year long situation. It's past that now. When you have big institutions looking at it, when you have large bankers speculating against its, if it's worth anything or anything, it's out of the bag. People now, it's a matter of, if there was a quick way that wasn't going through the nightmare sometimes of trying to get Bitcoin through like Coinbase, or where you're, the mother test, right? Can my mother get it? Can somebody, how can I get it? That's a lot of the questions that come to us and stuff. I want to buy it, but where can I get it? Do I have to go through this like week-long process to get it? And,
I'm on live stream.
ATM. Which one?
I'm just yelling at someone that doesn't understand media production.
Once those pieces get opened up to where the common person can go anywhere and just get it without question, and that interchange starts to really happen, then you can have that that real true logarithmic, and that's not even including the big bankers and folks that have big money, a wall money looking to come into the space. And then, the sea rises all boats type of thing.
Yep.
And that's across all that crypto space. They're going to look at the assets that are actually particularly targeted and have development teams behind them and are trying to, grow some other space. That's why stuff like Ripple, which shouldn't even be considered in the same class as gaining exposure, and people are trading it, and it's a permissioned private permissioned public exchange, and it has the right elements for certain kind of money to go into it, and people speculate it and raise the price, irregardless of what we think about it from a technology standpoint, how it is against the Bitcoin. And it's the same thing that kind of transcends into some of the other alt currencies. Now, granted, there's hundreds of them, thousands of them at this point now, that are absolute worthless. But they serve no purpose. They were just forks and jokes. But there's some that are using some of that money to grow, the technology. And I know I've watched a lot of stuff with your opinions on Ethereum, and there's a lot of issues with the smart contracts and stuff, for sure. From a mechanical standpoint, a lot of open bugs and stuff that need to get through. But
if you're dumping your coins at market, who gives a shit? If you're a miner, right?
Going to know that too. And I think if the intentions are right and they can solve some of the right now what looks like unsolvable type of issues, I think the intention, the platforms that those are going to provide from an automation standpoint, and really changing the thing, the underlying technology, with even having the opportunity to hedge against that, it's a different paradigm. We couldn't hedge against the internet. We hedged against companies on the internet, but not from a platform standpoint, like a PaaS, like a PaaS or an infrastructure as a service. We can hedge on that bet that it can make fundamental change, and in that people speculate the value, and then you can get in and out, following normal market dynamic stuff. So it's an interesting paradigm, and I think as the younger generations are coming up through schooling and looking at something better, they're tired of listening to the old mantra of how things work when it comes to market and stuff. You're going to see a lot more interest expand exponentially.
So I'd like to talk about stuff that I don't normally talk about on the stream, because I think the people that are listening, I'd like to talk about stuff that I'm repeating because I saw you put your headset on, and I don't know how good your hearing is without it on. I think that people watching the stream now have already heard my positions on altcoins and Ethereum and all that stuff. So I'd like to talk about stuff that we're not used to talking about, that these guys may not have heard about, which is your stuff, right? So I don't think most people realize this, but I got into Bitcoin as a miner. So I was running overclocked 5970s back when Artforce first wrote the GPU miner, and then I switched to 6950s and custom BIOS mods, overclocking, putting giant fans on them, seeing how many I could fit in a case, like on down the list, right? So I was mining almost at the moment that it switched from CPU to GPU. I think I might have been a month or a month and a half late, something like that. So, and even earlier this year, I was mining Zcash because, I used to be a gamer and I had a lot of NVIDIA cards. And NVIDIA cards have, they suck at mining all cryptos except Zcash, because Zcash is a very odd algorithm. So you've got algorithms that only care about operations in the core of the GPU. And then you've got algorithms that are memory hard that do better the more memory you have. So like if you go under a certain amount of memory, it totally sucks to mine. But as long as you have that minimum amount of memory, so like scrypt, which a lot of people call script, is a memory hard mining algo. And then they invented a new mining algo based on the cuckoo cycle, which is like birthday collisions basically. And it is unique because it's based on it's based on memory latency. So it's not based on memory mass size. It's not based on processing power. It actually scales based on latency. And so a 1080 Ti, rather a 1080, is slower mining Zcash than a 1070 because the 1080 has a larger bandwidth of RAM, but a higher latency. Whereas the 1070 using GDDR5 instead of GDDR5X has lower bandwidth, but lower latency, and therefore mines Zcash faster. Now, I was a retarded idiot for doing that because, one, it's a pre-mined shitcoin with a 20% founder's tax and an undetectable inflation rate and a trusted setup that there's absolutely no reason for you to trust. You don't know that they did that right, and you'll never know because it's not knowable, right? So, and if the coin works, then you can just fork it anyway. And so I mined a fork for a while as well. And then that fork failed due to marketing problems. So, and then even doing all that, it was still retarded. You should have just bought Bitcoin, right? Like I didn't learn my lesson. So like I've always known that mining is not as financially effective as just buying coins, but it's so much fun. And you get to overclock and you get to like push every limit of your computer. It's fun and it's great onboarding to get people into the ecosystem. But financially, it's fucking stupid. Like you're just not gonna. Like it's better than holding cash, but it's not as good as holding coins.
Yeah, at big scale. I mean, so it's always been. I mean, it's went to kind of a big scale thing for us, obviously, for really testing out the different options that are there and looking at the standard configuration. 6 card, 8 card rig. It's gone kind of crazy now with like 19 card boards and stuff, and we're working on an episode to really kind of point people to say, for all kinds of reasons, it's probably not a good idea to go 19 cards in one board for not just the financial piece of it, but, to onboard people, to get people part of the ecosystem, the part of it was the void that was there in the space. And you mining early, we mined very early. Me personally, I was doing folding at home and SETI at home and stuff because I just like to dork out.
Yeah, me too.
Stuff, right?
I used to do that too.
And
I used to do folding at home.
I found Bitcoin very early. I mean, very, very early. Like end of beginning of 2010, found just the space in general, cryptography, PKI, found Bitcoin, didn't understand it a lot. Found that I could actually start to use CPUs and GPUs to actually mine it. Got on the Slush's pool real early and started doing it. Actually made some videos, and we're putting together kind of a collage video from our 2010 to when we made the channel in 2013 to kind of show, because we were like, there wasn't a lot of information, and unless you were like almost a CS major to understand how to get into it, it was kind of hard. I mean, it wasn't really easy to get into the mining side of it. So by 2013, when it really started, and you started talking altcoins, Feathercoin, Litecoin, script coins, we're like, there's a void in the space with really trying to just show what's possible. You have all these companies that are reviewing stuff. You have Linus and a few other big YouTubers like barely touch it and not do it very good justice, just because it's not their space. And by that time we started doing some mining, and we said, what, let's make a channel, and try to educate people on how to get into like the understanding of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general, and have fun doing it. And then it kind of expanded into like the initial investments we put in there, which were pretty decently sizable, really netted a pretty decent out, after I think it was February of maybe 13 into 14. This is, prior to Butterfly Labs and all that kind of stuff. Like we bought jalapenos and all that stuff. We were probably one of the rare few people that actually got a few of them. And then, that we just really wanted to expand that exposure to, the space, and just, I've always looked at, from my background as a technologist, at the time, and I was a delivery manager for a software development team. So, Scrum Master, had people doing iterative development, deliveries, that do a lot of presentations. I do big presentations. And I'm like, there's nobody in this space that can really explain it right now, at that time. And we just kind of expanded it. And it's continued on just because, irregardless of where these coins are and their big, huge flaws, I look at it from there's development effort on several teams trying to move the technology and you know, there's bad portions of it, people that have probably malintent, and then there's folks that are trying to just, they don't know what they're working, right? They just know that that they're on the bleeding edge of it, and it could manifest into something. And then you have the groups that are very targeted. They have a roadmap, they have a plan, they have a vision that might be kind of out there, but and then you got the big corporations now sitting on top that are looking at, okay, how can we use this, and asking the right question. I'm kind of split between the two. Like from a hobby standpoint, from a channel standpoint, I try to, you know, make sure people, if they want to get into it for one graphics card, two graphics cards, granted we go through all kinds of graphics cards and technology, but
So
really from just pulling people into the space.
I'd love to talk to you about specifics.
Both of us
about
are in the absolute same perspective there, that if knowing what we know now, we apply that knowledge going forward, you should buy crypto, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt there. You should hedge on, especially Bitcoin and some of the other major currencies that are getting a lot of exposure, even as the tech is being, you know, refined over and over and over on the tech, getting updates and seeing where things go. Now people can totally mess that up, right? I mean, and make it go south, but you know, getting people into the space and, you know, or you know, and if it gets them a little bit of crypto and starts to understand, part of my issue with it is then I've gotten people to go out to Coinbase, buy coins. They bring it local because, you know, there's a fork, and then they screw it up and they forget a password or something. The penalty for failure in the space is pretty hard, right? So I'm like, you know, hedge your graphics card for a week, get a small incremental amount of something like Kubik or, you know, Zcash or, you know, any of the other currencies, and understand the transaction space, understand what a ledger is, understand how this stuff works in a small case, and then you can scale up and then invest. Instead of spending $9,000 on a crazy 1080 Ti rig, you could, you know, just buy an extra graphics card, hedge it for gaming or something on the side, and then, you know, run it at night in a lower efficiency mode, you know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, it just gets people, if they're messing with the tech, if you know, understanding how the stuff works, they get a better entry into understanding the technology behind it, because they're trying to configure stuff. They're trying to understand how's it working, versus just as easy as you can go buy it and then lose it or not have that appreciation with the technology. We're just trying to elevate that understanding in a different way than not just education into what the crypto space could do, what can it do mechanically, and how does it work. So, I mean, that's been part of the whole drive that we've been doing this whole time.
So I'd like to talk to you about specifics, because the token that I am working on will be mined, and it's a unique, I believe, extremely unique setup. So right now we've got Bitcoin, and Bitcoin does dual round SHA-256 and has evolved to the point where it is only profitable to do it on dedicated ASIC hardware, which is useful for not very much else than Bitcoin and coins that are forked from it that are worth a lot less. I mean, there might be a couple other ASIC things out there, but the majority of the financial volume, the vast majority, comes from Bitcoin, the real one. So the upside to that is that if you want to attack the network from a 51% perspective, it is more expensive to do so, because if you destroy the value of the network, you also destroy the value of your mining hardware for the most part. Whereas if you use a ASIC resistant algorithm, such as a memory hard algorithm, then it reduces your attack cost to attack the network through that vector, because upon successful 51% or other crappy hash-based attack, you can resell your equipment because it is useful for doing other things. Now, my perspective is that these networks, for the most part, do not get attacked through that vector, and thus they are oversecured. They're currently being attacked through social vectors and political vectors, and having more hash rate does not much to solve those particular things. So I'm I would be very excited if my token performed the activity of doing useful proof of work. So, doing wasteful proof of work is the maximum secure. However, we're over secure because the attacks don't come from that vector anyway. And doing useful proof of work would make the world a better place. So if you go on YouTube and you search SpaceX, they're building rockets and they're building things that will land humans on Mars. And they cannot build those things without modeling them in a computational fluid dynamics supercomputer, period. That's it. There's no building of rockets in the year 2017 without computational fluid dynamics modeling, period, at all, right? Because it would be very, very expensive when your several $100 million rocket explodes or vibrates to death or doesn't function aerodynamically or temperature-wise the way that you thought it would. So right now, if you want to do computational fluid dynamics work, you have to buy extremely expensive software, and then it takes an extremely long time to run the jobs. And there's a huge monopoly in the space. So one company has 90% market share. That sucks. Monopolies aren't good, and it's not good for the world, and it's not helping us make progress. And the solution to that is to attach a token to improving the models, improving the math, improving the algebra that gets done, that you build up into your CFD model to recreate reality digitally, right? And that doesn't exist right now. So the model is this. Everyone that's got a CPU and a GPU, they can either mine for free on all the stuff on Boink Stats, or they can mine for profit on their coin of choice. I could just start listing coins, but I'm sure people can figure out what's mineable and what's not. And the end result of those activities are you're going to make some tokens, and the tokens are going to have a market value, and your house is going to get hotter, and your components are going to fail, and some people have fires. There's downsides to it. Now, if people were willing to accept those same risks and utilize that same capital, a processor is able to do useful work. That's a capital good. A GPU is a capital good. It's able to perform useful work. And so if we can rotate all of these GPUs and CPUs out of doing bullshit into doing something useful, making the world a better place, and people could make even more money on it, because we don't only have the tokenomics, isn't crypto awesome, check out this cool new thing, hype stuff. We have a real retail market of at least $1 billion a year of real modeling that gets done by professionals that want to build extremely expensive, awesome things in the real world. So as long as we get retail adoption, and even if we don't, it should be able to rotate vast swaths of the wasted proof of work, which is totally oversecured, into useful proof of work. Miners will make more money. People that want to do engineering, their jobs will get done quicker because it's being subsidized by the hype and the awesomeness of cryptocurrencies, right? And people will have a financial reason to build better open source math solutions. So our engineers have a GUI, they have a little slider, and they say, here's my model, tell me what this is going to do in the real world. These are the temperatures, these are the shapes, this is what the materials are. They give that to the job server. The job server's got my partner's a rocket scientist, a literal rocket scientist with 250 patents. Polymath, badass. I looked at his PDF for this stuff. I'm a decently smart guy. I don't understand half of it. I'm not a physicist, and I don't know about time marching, discretization, meshing of, it's outside. If you don't have the Navier-Stokes algorithms memorized, you ain't gonna understand none of this stuff, right? So
well, he's a subject matter expert, right?
Yeah, unless you're a physicist or a rocket scientist, I don't think you're going to understand the core tech. But that's fine. You don't have to. You just have to understand the job that we give you. And the job that we give you is, here's the model, comes into the job server, It's got a little slider that says you want this done faster or slower. Job server splits it into parts, and those parts get mined by open source matrix inverters like Super LU, and which means lower upper. It's a way to factor algebraic equations. So, right now there's no financial incentive for anyone to improve that open source project. But if that project is what you use to mine our token to make the world a better place, now people will have a token reason to make that software better, just like they made SHA-256 hashing better, just like they solved cuckoo algorithms better because of Zcash, right? So if you incentivize and tokenize positive social change and positive development, you cure a tragedy of the commons, which is right now, open source software gets its ass kicked, can't hire the best devs, can't advertise because no one makes money on it getting better. You're just throwing your time away. Oh, look, I made this better. Maybe someone will notice one day. Maybe. Fuck that. We're going to give them a token reason to make the world a better place.
Well, I mean, a lot of people that do like a lot of open source software. So I mean, most of the open source software in general, anyways, comes from a lot of those, very well educated people that have spent almost their life's work and have day jobs, right? So you have to still live. So I mean, I think that it's taking something that's out there right now and really elevating it to a needed product, and then I would say from a success rate would be really just having something that's very small and modeled that functions and does what you're asking at a very small scale, and then how to really, I think the size of spreading it out and then having an infinite amount of different types of technology, being able to process, the request essentially of what you're saying, is probably the long pole on that. More the technology, localized, but having it out there and spread out in a tokenary fashion where you're actually having the out across all the, the network. I mean, I need to research what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, I could tell you an equivalent. So an equivalent would be...
you covered like three different things, the infrastructure, the platform, and the software as a service all in one, which is some of the what a lot of the tokens are trying to do. But this, from a proof of effort versus proof of work, from the security side,
well,
I think
I can make analogies for you that I think will make it easier to understand. So right now, there's already an open source protocol spec for miners communicating with pools. It's called Stratum, right?
Yep.
So you can build whatever miner you want, and it'll work with whatever pool you want as long as it speaks the Stratum protocol, right? So what we have now is a world where miners are not running full nodes. They're just doing the jobs that Stratum is telling them to do and trusting that the pool is going to reward them. And that exists because of variance with the difficulties being too high, that as a solo miner, you could never ever get a block reward ever on your own because there's just too many participants in the system. So you have to buy down your variance by sharing some of the revenue with the pool, increasing centralization, blah, blah, blah. So in this model, the pool is our super sauce CFD job server. So we're the only pool, right? Now we could federate that over time and do multi-sig, and I've got a bunch of fancy ways to introduce decentralization into the system as we get traction. But it's the wrong way to put that stuff before traction, because security is only as useful as you're being attacked. And being attacked only happens as much as there's a value to attacking you. And so security and decentralization should scale with adoption if you're intelligent. So the job pools that are currently Stratum would be replaced with our CFD server, and then on their clients, they wouldn't be running like a closed source miner like Claymore that gets a fee but still ends up making people more money because it's so optimized, right? So instead of running Claymore or EQM, or I could list the different miner solutions for all these different coins, right? You would just run matrix inversion software like Super LU, or one that you wrote, or one that you forked, or one that we gave you. It's just algebra, right? So
yeah, and so I mean, what you're saying is taking something like SETI at home, you a
Very
package.
similar.
Or, I mean, so all the
Very
traditional to make sure everybody else that's listening understands. And I mean, so I got the cryptocurrency piece of it, right? I
Yeah.
understand that part of it.
So the reason those projects failed is
Right.
because they
So,
did
I
security
mean,
a
we're all
little
working
too
on the same
weak.
package, kind of constructs. We're updating ledger. Based on all that stuff, we're all fighting for the token to be able to mint the next block. I got all that, right? So what I'm trying to understand is how the distribution model in this particular thing can differentiate if all of the miners that are participating on the network are working on the same set of package, right?
They're
So if you
not.
think of it
They're all
from a
working on
distribution
different
standpoint,
ones. They all work. So the difference the difference is in a hash-based model, everyone's working on the same exact problem. They all want to extend the chain another block. So everyone is dedicating all of their hash power in the same wasteful way to find a leading number of zeros on a hash. And
correct.
so in that model, everyone's workload is the last block, basically. Now you could say a portion of their workload is the mempool, but you don't actually need to include transactions. So that's optional. If you want to roll transactions into your next block, you can and enjoy the fees, but you don't have to. And a lot of empty blocks get mined. So the difference between that model, which everyone understands, and this model is that the job server is not going to give the same problem to everyone. Now, in a traditional BOINC system, they can't trust that you gave a good answer. So they have to do it 3 times, hope they don't get Sybil attacked, where people lie and then get 3 people to collision attack you and lie, and you think it's the truth because 3 different people said the same thing, but they actually all 3 of them were lying. So in this system, we don't have to do triplicate quorum sensing because we can mathematically verify the answer quickly. We don't need to, it's verifiable by math. I don't need a quorum of other people to be able to lie to me about it. So it's great from that perspective, from an efficiency perspective.
Part of the algorithm.
Right. I mean, if I give you an algebra problem and you solve it, I can check the answer. It's cool. So the next issue is, how do you make sure people don't take jobs and never do them? Well, I could make it a race and only reward the guy that gets it back first. But then there's a lot of people that wasted effort. I don't like that style. I could make people, for larger jobs that have a certain class, I could make them put a little bond, right? So you mine the lower class jobs at low latency to get enough money. And then you can use that little earning as a bond to make sure that you're actually doing the work that you're handed. You're not locking up jobs and slowing down the system by not finishing them, right? Or I could, so they lock up a bond by doing a simple problem, or they get money by doing a simple problem that then they can use as a bond to make sure they do the work. Or once you've built up reputation over time, I know you're good, I'm just gonna trust you, right? So we scale you into trust. So you start off untrusted, you can only work on crappy stuff, or unless you just want to pay for a bond, right? Just lock up the tokens. Then you can buy your right to do good ass work. No problem. And then once I know you're legit, I don't really need to hold your bond anymore. So we scale you into trust. And that's the way we get around people grabbing jobs and not doing them, people trying to create artificially weak jobs and trying to get a reward somehow that the economics don't work out, like that attack doesn't work out. So I'm pretty sure I've got an awesome way to solve open source development and improve open source algebra solvers and give engineers tools to model and build things in the real world that don't currently exist. And all of this stuff is not even thinking about the fact that my rocket scientist buddy, his solution actually does stuff other software can't do, like multi-phase flow and more accurate, and it doesn't make assumptions about boundary conditions, and it doesn't make assumptions about viscosities, and that stuff's super, super important if you want an accurate model. So you can make something really pretty that looks good, but then when you find out that it was just pretty, right? It's like these softwares that...
It's got to prove it out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a set of standards with any of that modeling in general. I mean, now we're getting more into the solution side of my background, which is my professional career side. But I mean, it's so in any of those type of things that you're talking about in general I mean, you have the problem you're trying to go on, you're attacking, and there's going to be, especially since something like that exists and it is a 90% market share, there's going to be a set of standards that you have to achieve and hit, right? And so there's going to be at least a basic set of series of tests that this could prove out.
Well,
the distribution model and involving people and making it as something that GPU miners and CPU miners and all that thing, that initial just getting it out there and even working through some of the stuff that we were just talking about with like who's going to handle what package, how are you going to do the package control, is it going to be through an Oracle, how is that going to, that stuff can all be figured out as part of that onboarding and just working through it, right? With the visions out there, the roadmaps out there, the intentions are out there, and getting some level of critical mass behind it. I mean, that's, if you look at any of the current coin projects, even just laying that out and saying, here is our iterative plan, and here's the things we got to go run down. That is essentially what's going on the business side right now. On, you know, if I put the business hat on and look at blockchain tech in general, of looking at, they hear the crypto side, they understand the incentive model, that how crypto is manifested and really onboarded an entire ecosystem of generation to say this is a better way and here's why, and we don't have to, you know, you don't have to trust us here, you do it, right, and see it. Taking, you know, any of those projects that are becoming successful, that are trying to be, you know, spearheaded in the business side with any kind of critical mass where companies are putting R&D towards it, are essentially asking those same things. They're laying out, like, what are we trying to accomplish? What is this going to, you know, how can we best leverage, you know, the current technology, and look at, or a lot of it's, you know, on the private side, but this stuff's going to come, just like we're seeing the Bitcoin price going to explode. It's going to come into the public space a lot faster than you can believe, because, I mean, look at that incentive motive they have to say, although I don't need to go build a data center, I could go build a really slick piece of software that incentivizes participation and just make it public. And now all the processing stuff's going to be done through just this incentive model that's going to have its own speculative cost. I mean, that's the stuff that the regulators and everybody are kind of freaking out with at the end of the day, is because they're like, you know, the big companies could fund exactly what you're trying to do too, to say, I want to do this distributed stuff and I don't have to go have all this hardware to compete. I could actually use all the people that are having their own hardware and their own, and like a Hive cluster, right? And I mean, that's the kind of R&D stuff that's in the back corners of, you know, all these big companies and stuff looking at it, right? I mean, as a solutions person, I mean, I look at it from just like, how can I take existing current known problems on transparency, on just the stuff that's really causing a lot of social unrest and all that kind of stuff, and figure out how can we make some of the bigger systems better, because at the end of the day, people are just getting tired of the way a lot of things are being ran, right? And, you know, the governments, the larger companies and stuff, I mean, you still have some of the older ones that are not going to change and are going to, you know, pick kind of like Jamie Dimon, oh, it's a flaw, and then buy the dips and stuff. But you're going to have there's a lot of them out there right now trying to do this exact thing, looking at how to hedge the tech and answer some of these problems. I think that what you're talking about is phenomenal. I think that's kind of what the basic concept of some of the IOC, you know, our ICO tokens and stuff have tried to do, saying distributed supercomputing and all that. But I mean, actually going in and attacking it, I mean, understanding that you're trying to get the right, you know, a subject matter expert on it, and you're setting forth a plan and you're asking the right questions on it and stuff, that's huge. And I think the more transparent on your path on that you're going to have the entire community behind you on it. I mean, we have, you know, army of hardware that you know, we look at trying to onboard and let people know what they can do with it, you know, from different coins and stuff like that. And then, you know, there's that techie side. It's like path really ecosystem growth, you know, by, you know, making sure people understand all the different alt currencies and Bitcoin and all that. And then part of it's just like, hey, what's a Radeon 56 do, right? You know, because I like the tech side. I mean, that's kind of where it came into the hobby. You know, I see people like Jay's 2 Cents and some of the other big YouTubers, and they're very focused on gaming and all that. And I'm like, no, I want to see what this thing can crunch numbers. I want to see it model what you're talking about. I want to see my contribution in there, and I get paid for it too. That's awesome, right? So that kind of concept in general, I think, is catching on more. I think it's just that gap what I need to do from a social responsibility, and I'm seeing this now with the 19 card board. from a social responsibility, I got to make sure people understand, like, hey, this isn't a get rich quick. There's been situations over time that people that had hardware made money, and theoretically, if one of those coins really take a huge lift and you've been mining it, that's great too. But from a normal investment standpoint, be smart about it, and hedge across a couple different currencies that you believe in. And something like this that's trying to tackle a social problem directly head on, I think is great. And
well, we get it a little
I'd
bit
like to
easier
hear
than
more
most people
in
because the
general
software's already
where you're
done.
at.
The software, the hard part, the actual hard part, it's already done. So the CFD code has already generated $60 million valuation startups using the output. It's done jobs for NASA. It's done jobs for giant clients because my rocket scientist co-founder that wrote it has been using it to consult for giant companies for a long time. So that part is already tried and true, tested, 150,000 lines of code complete. And the only parts it needs are the GUI, which is open source, the network, which we can grab a lot of open source parts for, right? A lot of the token stuff's already done. I'm basically just gluing together parts here. There's not actually a ton of innovation that needs done. And I'm more than happy to do that because the CFD code's still closed source and the pool still maintains the margin. So I can let everyone improve everything around it. You can improve the solvers. You can improve the GUI. Everybody can make everything better. And we don't need to be a cryptocurrency either. We can let the blockchain guys do the blockchain thing right. And all I need to do is make the job server work properly, right? And all the other software is pretty much done for me. Like, I love it. There's something else I wanted to say. So I just bought a bunch of servers, so to speak, because, God, I love hardware. And when I found out that the i7 8700Ks would overclock to 5.1 gigahertz on air at about 87 Celsius max, and that they wouldn't be available in good quantities until maybe next year, like 2018, I locked up my 8700Ks with quickness, right? So I love fastest single core on the planet, love it. I love the triple M2 slots. So I had to search very hard to find a triple M2 slot that also had 10 gigabit Ethernet and dual Intel LAN, all of it, right? Like, dream come true. Yeah. Now, so I was thinking to myself, should I get smaller PCIe, NVMe, M2 drives and RAID 0 them? Or should I have the more reliability, probably lower latency, but lower mass throughput? And I decided to go single with it. So the reason I'm going single on those is because, one, I don't have to worry about RAID 0 failure on the motherboard level. Two, I don't have to worry about startup latency, right? For checking, okay, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, now we can start, right? And it's
You're
also more
application throttled anyways.
Right. And
most of those applications, if you watch, we do that with, so like, doing video, like, any kind of 4K video. I got real tired of the 6950. Not really, taking forever. We were using a couple Titans, we were using 1080 Ti's, and we had the 960 Evo Pros, the M2, the 512s, and the 1 terabyte ones. And we tried it both RAID 0 and regular. And bottom line, the application throttles it. You can see it spike, and then it just sits there and tells off. No matter if it was RAID 0 or not, it always hit like a theoretical limit of whatever the application was telling it. And when we tried to do some registry hacks on that, did some Google search and figuring out, like, why the hell, this thing's supposed to be 3,500 megabytes per second. Why the hell am I not getting anything over 80, 90?
You'll hit throttles too. You'll hit thermal throttle as well if you keep it under sustained load. You got to heat sink the PC. You've got to heat sink the M2 drives as well because they hit thermal throttle if they run full out for about a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to put an aluminum heatsink on them.
Yeah, the new Republican Gaming actually has the main M2 underneath the heatsink, so it's got an air cool over it. It's just we try to do a registry hack, it just crashed all the time. Like we saw it spike up 350, 800, to 800 megabit per second, and then it would just crash.
Go ahead.
No, I just think that you're as long as you're going with just the fastest one out there, you're going to be the RAID 0 did nothing that we could
Yeah.
tell at all, short of the synthetic fake test that
Yep.
you can just run to say, hey, it hits
Yep.
6,000 megabytes.
Yep, I agree with all that. I think I made the right decision going with non-RAID 0. Now I could also RAID 1 it, but I really shouldn't have to, because it's better to scale like Google does. You're better off with more commodity hardware and scaling in the software routing layer than you are trying to build retardedly expensive, non-commodity servers. They don't scale as well monetarily. I mean, if in a consumer piece of hardware you have the fastest possible single core response and the maximum amount of bandwidth for you've got 4 PCI lanes that'll do your 3.8 gigahertz, or rather gigabit a second read and write to the PCIe NVRAM, whatever the flash memory is called. And then, like what's left? Like the only thing that's missing from this commodity hardware is tons of lanes. And you don't really need tons of lanes. Like particularly, like for instance, if you were using these as miners, you only need an X1 lane because you're just transmitting the job, and then all the hard work happens in the GPU, and then it just transmits the response. You do not need X16 bandwidth for mining at all. And so, it's easy to use consumer boards that don't have 48, 64 lanes of PCIe dedicated to their slots, because you're never going to use it. They're never going to get saturated, right?
Yeah.
So I'm saying consumer hardware is awesome. I really like it.
Yeah, no, looking at a lot of that hardware, and we've tried to expand the channel with not just doing. Because how many videos about mining, whatever coin you want to talk about, can you make? Short of just like, hey, this one card does this, so we've really tried to look at it, especially with scaling up. When we first started the channel, we were making about one a month. It was all produced. And it was like, I got into doing more live streams because I just saw, like, as when Ethereum popped people into the space, our channel really went up. We kind of went dormant for like 9 months because it just wasn't a lot to talk about on it. And I didn't want to, it was this, again, that's that kind of like social responsibility piece. I don't want to, if it makes no economic sense at that point in time, after Litecoin and all that kind of split, GPU mining by and large was kind of a dead art by and large. If you did and you continued to mine, certain coins, mainly Litecoin, but that was already kind of switched to ASIC until Ethereum came on in 2015, September 2015, there was no real thing to mine that even now, if you would have mined it, we did the math. If you would have mined it like March through May of 14 through September of 15, and then carried September 15 to where it popped for Ethereum, which was, another almost year later when it really went up to, over $20 a coin. The coins that you would have been mining, like Feathercoin and Vertcoin and all that stuff, if you would have done the math on how much money you would have spent on hardware and stuff, it would have never paid off, ever. So we stepped the channel down at that point and said, maybe it is going to only go ASIC at this point. And then, when we came back, it was mainly due to the fact of, obviously Ethereum really took it up. It was GPU mined coin, and economically it made sense. Like, okay, there's a purpose, there's a point, to do this.
Well, it's going to be coming to an end soon, right?
At scale,
Aren't they going to fork you guys out of business, kind of?
The which one?
Isn't Plasma going to fork you guys out of business a little bit? They're going proof of work, ain't they?
Yeah,
proof of stake, rather.
Right now, it all comes down to one, if you make the coin, obviously.
I am.
So what it comes
it's
down
happening.
To is, I think that there's other currencies out there that are looking at proof of work. I think everybody agrees that proof of work in general, anything that allows distribution of that effort, there's a rationale for it, and I think people will continue to make currencies that will be mined. I don't think from a quick get rich quick type of scale that you're going to see the expanse that we did with Ethereum right now. It doesn't make a lot of sense right now unless you have something like what you're talking about, or a proof of effort type of thing, that you look at a company that says, we're going to do exactly what Richard's doing right now. We're going to build a proof of effort algorithm that we're going to hedge. We're going to take all that capital cost that we spend $20-30 million a quarter on cloud, and we're going to distribute it out to the world, and we want to do it at scale. And they send out a piece of software that people can download, and now you're hedging your equipment. That kind of model is not a far stretch from a distributed computing. I mean, you look at people that are looking at it from a green standpoint, from all this other, but it's going to come down to somebody has to answer exactly what you brought up of like, well, who's going to get the job?
Yep.
Because we all are working on the same thing isn't going to make a lot of sense, So you're going to have a reputation thing. You're going to have some reason for somebody to participate.
Yep.
And, I can see from just my vantage point from a solution side that, well, does that become a new certificate authority that you can get a license for the software and to participate, then you can get paid, and that's a new way to make a job. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that.
There's 10 different ways to do it, right? I mean, they all work. Like, how many cryptocurrencies have straight up failed, and how many cryptocurrencies haven't? And I think you're going to see a lot less failure than you would expect. You can't kill these fucking things. They just don't die. So even if you're a complete idiot,
life, right?
Yeah, like even if you were a complete idiot, if you have some technical OPSEC, like it's good. You're good to go, right? So I'm more than happy to add my project with some secret sauce competitive advantage stuff that you can't fork, you can't copy. It's literal breakthrough stuff from a rocket scientist. I'm more than happy to add it to the pool of things that people can mine. And that pool is already 30, 50 deep. And I think most of them are just wasting their effort differently. I think that one that has not waste, if it has adoption, or even if it doesn't, it's going to make an impact. Particularly since I'm pretty sure it's ASIC resistant, and therefore the miners will always be able to play it. And I can't proof of stake it. I can't fork you guys out. The work is hard to do and will always be, and has to actually be done and can't be replaced with proof of stake.
Yeah, I mean, most of all the currencies, because they're only doing proof of work, right, could all go to proof of stake if they wanted to go down that road. Because you could do almost everything that's being done on a node, right, a Raspberry Pi. You don't need the hardware, and that's part of that, that knowledge gap that we see people like, well, you're just another version that's making a validation, chasing the last block. You're securing the network through the proof of work algorithm, but you're essentially working on the same thing everybody else is.
Yep. They're all the different flavor of same ice cream, like vanilla, bean, vanilla, lightly different. Like, yeah. It's almost like fake differentiation, It's like going to a frat party and everyone has the same spiked hair and pop collar. And you're like, hey, do you guys all go to the same stylist? What's going on around here? There's a lot of fake tan going around here.
Well, I mean, so on the algorithm side and the actual doing the work side from the way mining works, absolutely, right? I think obviously the speculation part is of whatever their effort that they're working or they're trying to solve. Does that make sense? And do people believe in that path? I mean, you look at Monero and you look at some of the other currencies, the Zcash, and all of them have their flaws, right? I mean, we're all seeing that, but that's software in general. So it's like, what are they trying to do to fix those flaws? Can they fix it? And we haven't even reached, and this will probably be its own episode in itself, into deep learning and AI, right? And really applying those algorithms on some of those solutions to figure out different answers to some of those solutions. And the well-funded projects, if they were smart, would be looking at some of that stuff to try to answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I think AI is a little bit harder because they have special FPGAs for TensorFlow. So Google has their own hardware solution that accelerates TensorFlow operations, which is a format to do machine learning. And if you want, I mean, you can't buy them. You can't go to Newegg and buy a TensorFlow processor. So I think that proof of work miners with GPUs and CPUs and commodity hardware are going to find a good home with all the proof of work, vanilla hashing stuff, and with my useful work stuff. And probably at some point, maybe not the AI stuff, because, you know, Google doesn't bust out custom hardware silicon unless there's a decent performance advantage to doing so. And so that's one of those places where, you know, AI might get taken over by that specific ASIC solution. It's a possibility. It's much more likely than general computation that, you know, like if you could solve CFD problems with an ASIC, I would see them for sale, and I would see them in videos, you know, but they don't have that.
Well, I mean, they just got to take that R&D. Yeah, they got to take that R&D, and if they want to invest in, I mean, I think anything that somebody wants to make could create an FPGA or an ASIC for it, and even with memory hardening, I mean, GDR5, GDR5X, HBM, HBM2, all that kind of stuff could be added to an ASIC. You're just exponentialing the cost, and it probably doesn't make sense because there's already a platform out there that have them. But you know, in any of that general technology and those expansion of that technology.
Out of curiosity,
I mean, I think that's the question that the graphics card companies and everybody are trying to answer right now. Of like, you know, we've reached out to AMD directly. We've reached out to NVIDIA directly a couple of times and just said, you know, you send all this stuff from a review standpoint. So this is putting the YouTube hat back on, just from a review standpoint, saying, you know, what we're not your target audience, but, you know, I know from just the participation that we have in, from just looking at our viewers, because we recently started doing Amazon affiliate stuff. It's like a 6-to-1 ratio when people look at the stuff that we're doing. So I mean, like, from the tech, let's figure out a solution that isn't screwing over the gamers or whatever, you know. But that doesn't make sense. Like mining cards that have no I/O, and you're still charging the same price. You know, something that allows people to participate in this space, that's solving, you know, proof of work and has a rationale that isn't, you know, like, oh, those dark crypto miners that are down in, you know, their basements making stuff and all. I mean, there's a market for it, and, you know, bring that relative cost down. The power, you know, let's answer the power problem, because it is very wasteful, you know, from a power standpoint. I mean, it's gotten better, but it's still, I mean, I got 30 amp connections behind me, you know, like, and using 10,000, 12,000 watts, you know, kilowatt hours a month, you know.
Don't you wish you lived in Venezuela or China?
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm in the Midwest, and it's not the cheapest. I mean, it's not as bad as like a coast.
I know what you mean. So,
but, you know,
I think that tokenization is going to continue to increase the efficiency of the planet by getting hardware that could be doing work but isn't to start doing work. Now, currently, it makes the world a little bit worse because it's wasteful on purpose. It's awesome, it's great, it works. There's a lot of waste in the system it's replacing. I support proof of work systems. I would also be okay with a lot of hardware coming online for useful, make the world better stuff.
Absolutely.
Even with a reduced security model, less trustlessness, that's fine. That's fine. It's still a great deal, you know? I mean, what's your maximum risk? I don't think it's that much, because if you're getting paid in a token on another blockchain anyway, the token's fine. You got your reward. You can't get screwed, right? The job server died. All right, well, mine something else. Job server stays up. Oh, yeah, I get money.
I think one of the, especially talking about the security part of it, the part that people that really miss, and I see this, I guess, from the other vector point when I put the solution hat on, is if the reduction in security, how do I want to say this? If the reduction in security came down because you could do less proof of work, I agree with you for the fact that there's that attack vector hasn't been broached. And I mean, they have the absolute incentive to broach it when you look at the cost, right? The stuff out there, and it still hasn't. So you only really have two things. You have the value of it, to transfer value potential, And then you have, if things really spread out into blockchain with regards to information, became systems of record, right? I deal with a lot of systems of record, right? And that's a key piece. If something like, medical or CDC, or you see all these new things coming out with blockchain, that's going to be real relevant potential systems of record on a blockchain, and that's when you're dealing with straight money, and you have every incentive in the world to try to get that money, and it's still not being impacted the way it could be from 51% attack and stuff like that. I think it's proven the fact that you could probably deal with a little less, and that none of the attack vectors have been ever broached. We understand that it's a risk, but it's never been that, and you could scale it back some, I don't think. And I mean, you only have those two pieces: the incentive piece of it, of what it's worth, and then if big data ends up going out there. Before we leave that other potential use of the technology, I mean, there's the stuff that I see, and I go to the different trade shows and the industry stuff, and the interest is high, especially on the blockchain side of it. But I mean, stuff that we didn't even realize is possibilities out there, using like Hadoop database, taking data to those different nodes and being able to, serialize those. I mean, there's things being worked on right now that are just mind blowing on that blockchain space that have nothing to do with tokens, right? It's like you have blockchain, and then you have crypto based blockchains, which a portion of those are ICOs that are trying to get funding to do their research piece, but that is just like one spot, and then there's this whole other spot that are gonna to model and to expand and to scale those technologies. They hit to say, we've achieved it. We can do this in a small cloud standpoint. Okay, now how are we going to distribute this? We don't want to sit there and spin up a whole bunch of cloud stacks and technology stacks to do this. So then it looks back. I mean, you're going to see this look back into this industry, right? From the crypto side of it, and the incentive model's built in. Right. So looking at that of expanding what you're trying to do with the.
So what are you most excited about in your domain, right? Because I got my domain pretty figured out, but
Yep.
I see you trying to play with the 19 PCIe mining motherboard, and I imagine you're running into OS nightmares, is my guess. I haven't watched it.
No, it's actually Asus is about to get a pretty scathing review from us on it, because they kind of misled. I'm looking for the manual. So bottom line, and maybe it's a delta between the marketing and the technical guys, but bottom line, they put nowhere in there clearly that it required mining cards.
What the fuck?
19 cards.
That's terrible.
And then when you really look at it in detail, you need to use the mining cards, which are very specific cards, right? To make it go to 19. It is limited to 13 GPUs on a regular standpoint.
That's not that bad.
And then you need to use at least 6 of the P106 mining cards.
Okay, it is that bad.
They have a matrix in there that you could really get confused on using, and because you look at it, it looks quantitative, and you're reading it this way, like left to right or right to left. But it's a matrix, and they show kind of like P106, and they have the NVIDIA, but it's not super clear. And there's nowhere else in the manual that says that you have to use that. So I think a lot of people bought it on pretenses that they could go 19, and now are understanding that, especially in the States, it's hard to get the P106 and the RX 470 mining cards. Like, they're just non-existent. You can't buy them in stores. You could go on AliExpress and take a shot at maybe that vendor selling you crap. So it's pretty speculative that they did that.
Yeah, I once again will just make the statement that any time that you step out of commodity, you are entering nightmare zone, because the biggest problem with computers is that they don't do what they tell you they'll do. So you bought a mining board and you wanted to use it for mining, and it doesn't work for mining. Why? Because no one else already bled on the edge for you to support you to make it work. You decided to bleed on the edge, and now you get to be the guy that figures out why the hell it doesn't work, and you get to talk to the one dude that actually writes the BIOS for the fucking thing over at Asus, if he answers your calls, right? And he's in a different time zone. So I don't like bleeding on the edge. I've been through this shit before. You're like, oh, the manual's wrong. The jumper performs the exact opposite of the indicated way. I have to move the jumper to wrong to make this work, right? Oh, I can't boot with my RAID card in this slot, but I can boot with it in this slot. That's great, you know? Like, it's so bad. Right. So I've learned that the best thing you can do is use what everyone else is using, because you know it actually works, right? And you don't run into these edge cases that you could fight for months. I mean, I could link you to guys that have been through these fights with things that were documented one way and worked another way. And you're the only guy working on the problem. Good luck. You'll spend months fighting that battle. I would return that shit. I'd be like, nah, nope. I'm not spending 3 months to figure out your problem with your product. I'm not doing tech support for you for free. Next.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what we've kind of fell into, right? Is we are definitely trying to get to the latest, the bleeding edge stuff. And then, but when it's so despairingly obvious that it was a quick rush to get it out, and you know, they even put in there like, so this probably won't work, and we're gonna have a BIOS by the fourth quarter. You know, they kind of threw that in there, and it's like, you know, I mean, I get iterative development, but hardware development at an iterative level is kind of crap.
Well, I mean, it's really, it's really not hardware. It's just drivers, basically. I mean, the hardware's written in stone. They don't even have like an MEI Intel management interface that they can patch, like a low-level firmware thing they can change. They just have like a normal firmware thing. So it's really all drivers as far as I'm concerned. I mean, as long as the Linux guys have kind of got their stuff figured out. Like there's a reason Linux sucks for the consumer, and it's because all the drivers suck. You get the worst drivers last. Good luck. Why? Because you're doing something weird that no one else is doing. Nobody else is playing games on that platform. No one else is creating media on that platform. If you do something different than everyone else in hardware land, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for problems.
Yeah. I mean, that's what kind of, I would say it's the double-edged sword of this channel in general, is that's kind of what we're trying to help from a consumer standpoint, I guess. And if you know, I get, you know, I have Barnacle and a few of the other bigger YouTubers reach out and stuff and say, I don't get your edge. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, we were doing this more for, like, I didn't have AdSense. I didn't have any of that stuff turned on, right? Until just recently. And that was more to kind of qualm the time investment that I have into it.
Did you get more traffic when you turned AdSense on? Because I leave it off, but I think they penalize me and don't give me as much traffic because they don't make money on me because I don't allow ads.
Yeah.
Did you get more traffic or did you not see a difference?
I don't see any difference in traffic.
Okay.
I mean, I get the YouTube suggestions is the number one thing, which is a default. Like if you're running ads or not, unless the algorithm is saying if you're running ads, be higher on the suggestions.
Well, they should. I mean, why wouldn't they want to make more money? I mean, it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, but I mean, the ads piece, I mean, at YouTube, you don't make, unless you're like 400, 500,000 subscribers, you don't make money on YouTube. I mean,
dude, I type fast, and Barnacles types like 50 words per minute faster than me. But
pretty quick.
Barnacles, I'll call you out on this. I have a better workstation than you. I've seen your badass room. I've seen your non-symmetrical, loud internal air conditioner. I've seen I've got a better workstation than you. So I'm calling you out, Barnacles, okay? You kick my ass at programming. You kick my ass at typing. I've got better keyboards, and I've got a better workstation. So with your trillion YouTube videos, if you want to compete,
takes care of him.
I'll link to him so chat can see who I'm talking about. His content's pretty cool.
There you go. Yeah, no, I mean, it's you know, when I first started talking with him and stuff, they were like, you know, what's your edge on you? Because, you know, it's most YouTubers are trying to grow their channel and do lots of, you know, really just get that critical mass to be able to not have to do a day job. I'm in a weird set of circumstances where
Go ahead,
we're
I'm
going to
listening.
be doing this stuff anyways because I like the tech, bottom line. And I use it as also a hedge in understanding the underlying how things are working in the background in general. Keep on the, you know, I guess I could just troll Reddit and read, you know, Hacker News and all this stuff to figure out what's going on in the world when it comes to just, you know, the open source space and what's the new innovative technologies and all that. For when I actually put on the day job hat on, you know, from the solution side and trying to solve issues, like big issues, not just between companies, but it's companies and governments. I mean, I get from a very technology standpoint. I lived, eat, and breathe technology since I was young. So I mean, it's the president of the computer club, president of the technology committee.
What was your first computer? Do you remember?
I mean, that's just what I do.
Do you remember what your first computer was?
I had a hand-me-down 8088 from my dad, and then we went to a 286.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Monochrome.
386 SX.
Yeah. Do you have the turbo button?
I did it on the DX.
Nice. Dude, I remember when the internet, like I was on bulletin boards playing Doom all the time. God, I love playing Doom.
Oh yeah.
Just double barrel shotgunning dudes, man. Oh, so beautiful.
We would do LAN wars with because I remember I had a 486 DX4. It was our first LAN war, and that was the 100 megahertz one, and it was a boss. And I brought it over there, and it was like prior to really graphics cards. I mean, there was like an add-in card, but it was like a Trident or something. It was some crap, but it didn't matter at that time because it wasn't part of the culture or anything, right? It wasn't. You had the big computer shop that was like that big, right? And you try to put something together, but it didn't really kick into that next thing until after when I was in high school. I was in Illinois, and I went up to the release party for Mosaic. That was at University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and I didn't know what I was looking at the time. I knew it was like 1996, and we're just standing there, and I remember sitting next to this guy. I think it was Mark Anderson, which now runs a big company.
Everybody knows Mark Anderson, or should.
And I actually tweeted to him, and he actually liked it, which was funny. I'm like, hey, do you remember that young stupid kid that was there asking you about what the internet was at the release party for Mosaic, and he actually liked it, which was pretty funny because I mean, he's like, this could be huge, and I'm like, yeah, the internet, yeah, that could be huge, and it's just like, damn it, I was too young at that time to be part of something then. There, it just didn't have the critical mass that needed to do anything with it. Bulletin boards are still kind of super popular, but this round, especially with the blockchain space and just the way work has worked out of being part of being technology, it's just now, there's a few folks out there that really understand where this can go, and then the folks that are part of it to try to help drive it from a larger, not just corporate, government, that kind of thing space, but just from a technology. I kind of set in the technology realm of it. I don't get into the politics and all that BS. It's all fodder up, but from leading large solutions, I mean, that's what I'm in now. And that's where it's like, if YouTube and all this stuff blew up, and, mind you, I was mining Bitcoin pretty early. So it was, this, could we get out of it now? We could.
What do you mean get out of it?
Day job, and I know your whole thing, buying freedom and all that, but being involved in and what I'm in that right now is, I look at it as more of a social requirement because of the technology understanding that I have in the space and being part of it for so long. And yeah, we do tinker, and it has nothing really to do with blockchain tech here as much as it is at the office. But I try to drive those understandings to people. That's what that IAC forum that I was at, those are the forums that I usually go to, is like those kind of blockchain kind of company side, and just listen and hear and try to make sure that the narrative people understand, because there's so much just FUD, they're understanding, the lack of understanding at corporate CIO, CTO level stuff that just they don't, that's not their day job, right? They don't understand it. They're not reading Hacker News and all that kind of stuff. So I look at it as like a conduit to make sure that they're educated enough to make good decisions that make sense, from not just a monetary standpoint. The companies or the governments are going in the right direction, but it's just, we're looking at a bigger vision here. I mean, the whole thing can change everything, the way everything is, so that's the way it was when I was sitting in that room at University of Illinois in 1996, and I seen it there. They had like, who was that? It was like Network Solutions that did all like the .com and all that stuff. Registration.
It was like $70 a domain per year. I remember NetSol.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are here, and they have like just like single tables, and they're just set up, and You had Real Audio. I mean, I don't know if Cuban was there because I didn't know who anybody was at that time, in that time frame. But, you had Real Audio, and you had AOL had a desk there. And it was the start of essentially the first Mosaic browsers that would be included in, and people that don't know Mosaic, it was like the roots of Internet Explorer. And um, it was just like, I knew it was going to be big. I just had no idea. This, I know is going to be big, and I'm seeing the idea. So I just want to stay with it.
So I wonder, so I think we've covered mining. I think we've covered my token. I think we've covered your YouTubing. Is there anything else that we should cover? So let's ask chat real quick. Hey chat,
Yeah.
you're probably on a 30 or 40-second delay because of the 4K stream. You're definitely on that type of delay. Minimum 25, I think. So I'm looking for you guys. If you have any smart questions, I don't know, I'll even accept stupid questions. If they're good, I might answer. If you want me to do a keyboard review, I could go grab one of my sick keyboards. I love keyboards. So Mr. Righteous Capo asks, Richard, what do you think of the crypto space right now? I think that Bitcoin's going to the moon. What day is predicted for BTC to mine its last coin? Well, it's asymptotical. So if you increase the division past the 100 million Satoshi level, then you could never finish mining. But if you leave the division to the 8 decimal places or whatever, then there is some date, 100 years in the future, 50 years, some many, many, many years from now, where theoretically the last Bitcoin would be mined. And whatever, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. Cover Fed coin. I think that must be the dollar. The dollar buys a lot of stuff. It's nice. I don't have a big problem with dollars. They just always go down in value. But other than that, they're pretty cool. They just always go down, which sucks. Anyone here an Apple person? Apple has the best security for any cell phone, period. Their encrypted, it's called, the Secure Enclave, I believe it's called. Their Secure Enclave is so good. And so if you read the DEF CON and other, trying to crack into the Secure Enclave, they cover everything. They cover low voltage, they cover skinning the top of the chip, they cover like every imaginable way that those things could go wrong. I think BitsBeTrippin's internet dropped. Oh, he's back. Maybe he's just very pensive and still. He's moving again.
I'm watching chat now.
Yeah. So I think that being a couple generations on hardware behind sucks for their laptops. Their laptops do have the longest battery life by far. You get an hour or two extra on the same battery and the same processing power because their OS is more power efficient. However, everyone else in the world uses PC, and unless you want to bite the bullet, being the guy with less tech support, less options for software to run, a generation or two behind on hardware, I would stay away from Apple PCs, and I would support Apple cell phones now that they've got a good Bitcoin ecosystem. A few years ago, they didn't have an acceptable Bitcoin ecosystem, and at that point, an iPhone was not an option. I hate their money grabbing bullshit where it's impossible to move files from one phone to another. It's impossible. Like, they don't want you to download BitTorrent stuff. They don't want you to use normal headphone jack. There's a lot of money grab bullshit going on in that ecosystem, which enrages me. But I will respect them for form factor, design. It took them a long time to get on the big phone. I mean, that was stupid. If it fits in my pocket and it fits in my hand, why would I want something smaller? Like, funny fact, they make cell phones that are extremely small, so you can put them in your butt and smuggle them into jail. So they make literal, like, lipstick-sized cell phones for smuggling into jails, and they like advertise that they don't get caught, like butt phones. There was a funny article on it in Vice magazine, online version. Let's go. What is
Remember,
BitsBeTrippin going to mine since Ethereum is difficulty is high and POS is coming? Says BT Haney.
well, right now we're doing Ubik mainly, but the Ethereum's a difficulty adjust the 17th of October if they release, and it'll be back and predicated on the actual amount of hash power that's there, which should sling it straight to the top based on profitability.
All right.
For folks that are looking
Thoughts
at
on dating girls, says Abdullah. I'm going to make a funny comment for you, Abdullah. You have to find pretty girls on the internet and comment under their photos. Hello, princess. Come to Dubai. And make funny squiggly lines under all her photos. That, sir, is how you will find success with women. Dude, be amazing and just do stuff that your parents will be proud of. And then women will see, oh, this guy's a winner. Learn how to dress. Learn how to be fit. Be valuable. Be useful, right? Be funny if you can, improve yourself. So the trick to being fulfilled in love is to be worthy of it, right? So it's not, when you improve yourself, attraction is not a choice. People will be attracted to you if you are attractive, whether they want to be or not. So the saying is, be attractive, don't be unattractive. So be stronger. Just do everything that you know that you should do, and the girls will take care of themselves.
Like to do. I think people that focus on the attack, right? Like trying to find, something like that. I think if you find something that you believe in, that you like to do, regardless of what it is, and you're passionate about it, and you show commitment, that attracts, right? It's gravity. And
still, as long as they can see you, as long as they can detect that you exist and you have proximity, it'll work.
Yeah.
If you're in Alaska on a like research tour with just 3 other dudes, you might have to switch to the pink team, bro. Sorry. Let's go down the list here. BTC Gold, a joke? I don't think it's a joke. If you want to give me a airdrop, fork coin, for whatever excuse, and it's not contentious and it has replay protection, good on you, sir. I much prefer your airdrop fork coin that benefits me than something that you could do that wouldn't benefit me. So I'm totally for every fork coin and every airdrop. Please go at it. Have fun. I hope you do well. Richard, it seems like Bitcoin is being taken over by 2x. Is that a good thing? I don't think it's being taken over by 2x. The market valuation before I started the stream was 0.27. So that's failure. So then we keep the real Bitcoin and that one should go to 0. Yeah, I don't think B2X is taking over jack shit. The markets don't think they are, Or you could go set up an account on Bitfinex and go buy your super duper taken over everything B2X coin for only 0.27 over Bitcoin. But I doubt you will. We need a crypto polo label. I actually love branding, and like this necklace is my own little trademark fist crushing money thing. Back when I used to be more materialistic. Now I'm wearing it because why not? We're in entertainment now, so let's be entertaining. So I'm totally for making my own Gucci print, like the Louis Vuitton LV stuff. I'm totally for taking my Sci-Vive logo, which looks like a hacked up version of the Trinity Shield, right? And it fits with my belief system I put together, the Sci-Vive. I'm more than happy to turn that into a print. I just have to see how it looks.
I'm gonna send you some shirts.
All right. Yeah, BitsBeTrippin's wearing his. Look at his brand. He ain't fucking around. He's doing it better than I am. He's got his own T-shirt with his own brand, and it's got a cool nickname. Sounds cool. Sounds like BitsBeTrippin, right? He's doing it better than I am. I like it.
Yeah, but a lot of people ask us where it came from. And,
okay, where'd it come from?
There's a radio segment in this area, and it's pretty funny. I mean, it's nothing disrespectful to women. I want to start that off because but they have this segment on the radio station. And it's just dudes that call in about their girlfriends and ask them really kind of funny things. But it's called Bitches Be Trippin'.
I feel
and it's a really funny. I mean, it's like blinker fluid, that kind of stuff, right? It's just very lighthearted stuff. But we were sitting there thinking of a catchy name.
Yeah, I don't care
And
about PC bullshit. Like if you're uptight and you want to be offended, fuck you.
yeah.
Be offended. That's your weakness. Being offended is not a fucking virtue, okay? Being offended means you suck, right? So I don't do the PC tap dance around everyone's offense. Oh, I can't speak with specificity. Can't say anything true because some jerk off will get mad. No. I'll speak truth. If you don't like truth, fuck you, change the channel.
Well, yeah, on here, yeah, I guess it's fine. I it's like indoctrinated in me because I'm usually around people that would take obviously offense to things all the time. So it's like it becomes part of the behavior, and it transcends to everything I do. It's just one of those things. But
I think at some point,
I have a lot of those same beliefs.
So I used to curse more, and I had a lot of people in my stream complain a lot because they felt physically harmed by it. And they were seemingly, for the most part, nicer, older ladies, motherly types. And I had to decide, do I want to back off the cursing a little bit and physically harm these people a little less, even though they shouldn't be getting offended? It's easier for me to back off and not harm them. So I've backed off a little bit.
Yeah.
Not all, but a little bit. And I think that if I transition into having more of a financial responsibility to represent something, if Survive becomes a movement, if the token becomes super valuable, which it should, then I will probably back off the cursing even more, because I would owe it to more people at that point a little bit, right? So I'm not going all the way. I'm not going to be a PC freak, but it's just like you scale security based off attacks. You scale nicety based off of how much I have to, right? So it's like visiting your grandparents. You might have to wear a suit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be yourself, and if you're trying to project, like when I'm running a development team or I'm running a big effort,
I'm listening.
I need to make sure that they understand what I need, and what the client or the customer needs, and I'm not a dick, but I mean, I try to come off to like, guys, this isn't joking. We get this done. Here's what our scope is. Tell me if you can't, and we'll try to get some other help in here or something like that. So you gotta have a personality. You gotta have presence. But there's a respect thing and certain things. But like we're having a conversation like this, I mean, I get it. It's just like most of the time I'm like, screw those folks or whatever.
Yeah, you change. You be a better you or a worse you based on who you're talking to. You optimize who you are for who your audience is. You're not always the same person, absolutely. Right? I mean, sometimes you're out drinking, sometimes you're visiting the grandparents, sometimes you're at your. You should have a wide range of acceptable behaviors and personalities absolutely. That you can use when they best fit. If you're a well-rounded human being, I mean, that's pretty much the definition of well-rounded. So there's actually, you guys are coming up with pretty good questions here. So I'm just going to read them out and then and see what kind of, man, you guys asked a hell of a lot of questions here. God. I got to page up like quite a few times here. What's your opinion on Bitfinex launching future pairs BTC1 and BTC2? I think that price discovery is important. I think price discovery is useful. I think that trying to predict what the future might look like allows people to better prepare for that future. So I think that's all good. And I like the way that they changed it from the way they did BCH into this other method, which rewards people for being long the thing instead of being short the thing. If you're the new actor and you're the one creating contention, you shouldn't be assisted by economic game theory into doing things which are very costly for the ecosystem regarding integration, right? So every time one of these new stupid thing comes along, all the wallets have to do a lot of work and all the exchanges have to do a lot of work and every technical person has to do a lot of work out of the kindness of their heart to support your silly idea. And so I think that it's totally fair that they don't get extra assists on the work that they're causing other people to have to do to route around their stupidity. Scrolling down.
Yeah, maybe something. A lot of opinions of the PC nature.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone that's watching this is probably a libertarian dude. So if I wanted to shill and get a bunch of upvotes, I could just say, I hate men with guns. Men with guns are evil. I could just like libertarian shill out my butt, but I find it cheap. I find them cheap laughs and cheap likes. I like more unique stuff that I could generate on my own than tweeting, party lines. Someone asked, do I watch the Orville? No, but this is the second time someone's mentioned it to me, so I'm probably going to check it out tonight because that shit must be cool. Or that's like the second time it's been mentioned. More people are mentioning that.
It started off a little rough.
All right.
But yeah, I've watched it. We caught up. It's gotten better.
All right. I watched the new Star Trek, and I haven't watched much of it, but man, it's not that good, unfortunately.
It's not good.
I hate when people pay extra money to make things look worse. Like Jurassic Park had really good looking dinosaurs. Then the new one has bad looking dinosaurs for a lot more money. Stop trying to do everything digitally. Use goddamn models. They work really well and they're cheaper. Fuck. The Klingons used to look better. Now the Klingons look fucking retarded and it costs you more to do it. Stop. All right. Good advice, Richard. Now just learn how to dress and you'll be all set. Son, if you put me near your girlfriend, dog, I'm going to take your girl. So you could talk shit about the way I dress, but I didn't choose these clothes. I optimized my fashion over time due to good A/B testing. So what I do works. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're probably not my target audience. On down the list. Richard, you look exceptionally good and happy today. Fuck you, past guy, see? Fingers crossed for 20,003 Bitcoin by Christmas, New Year's. I'm with you, bro. I'm feeling that. What kind of watch is it? Two-tone Rolex Daytona. No, I'm sorry, Submariner. 2003. So they changed this band on the bottom from all stainless to have this gold, which gets dented really easy in 2003. So you can basically tell the age of a Submariner by, at least the two-tone ones, by this clasp at the bottom. The reason I got this watch is because it's the most recognizable rich person watch. So if you don't have more than 10 million, if you only have single millions, and you want to let other single million people know that that's how much you've got, you get one of these, probably like, I don't know, 8-10 grand now, I guess. I'm not really sure. So, super durable, works forever, goes up in value, not down. I could probably sell this for more than it originally cost. Not as good at telling time as a normal watch. Normal watch is better. This shit runs a little fast. I could go get it serviced, but I think it runs like 5 or 6 seconds fast per day. And if you don't wear it for 72 hours, it stops. So you have to get like a watch winder that's constantly moving it. It runs on kinetic energy. So there's a little counterweight in here that as you move, it clutches around and only goes, keeps winding a spring. That's why they're called automatic. This thing can go 300 meters. I went like 10 meters. My ears hurt like shit. I'm like, yep, I don't want to go any farther. This feels crappy. So if you want to look rich, this is the one that's in all the advertisements, right? But then if you're really rich, you look at this like a poor person's watch. So if you're really rich, you have a Patek Philippe or something that's much less gaudy and much more understated. But you know what? I prefer the gaudy because people are stupid, right? Like a person that would know what's up with a Patek Philippe, he doesn't give a fuck about your watch anyway, or shouldn't, right? So I'm okay with single tier millionaire signaling. Like I could go up the list of like other fashion price points that you could use for signaling, but I doubt you're really in the market for buying Rolex. If I were to get another one, I'd get a Daytona because I like the stopwatch feature. So I'd get a white face Daytona or a black face one. Probably two-tone. I like the two-tone. You're on a waiting list for the new ones, and whatever. I'd rather buy Bitcoin than have a fucking watch. Like do this math, okay? If you took, I think when I got this, the watch was like 6,500 or something. So if you took that 6,500 and you put it into crypto, anytime that wasn't the last year, boy, you could buy a lot of watches, right? And so just look around your house and look at everything you got and be like, oh shit, I could have had like a trillion, zillion, billion, trillion crypto dollars. Oops. So I still live way cheaper than I have to, because, you know, I'm a holder, man, and you're not holding if you're spending. Do you want to pick any of these questions? Do you see any that like pick out to you?
I was letting you go, man. I like the style discussion.
All right.
Uh,
Yeah, like let me tell you, by the way, this whole like expensive watch thing, no one actually gives a fuck. So you'll get maybe 3 or 4 compliments a year, of which 30 to 40% will be shopkeepers. And that's it. No one gives a fuck about your car. No one gives a fuck about your watch, particularly not women at all. They don't fucking care at all. If you asked them what a new M3 cost, they don't know. They don't care. So if you're doing materialism for someone other than you, you're probably going to be unimpressed with the actual results.
Yep. I'm more of a functional type of person. I like it. The technology in the cars, the technology and stuff, it needs to do something. It needs to be elevating.
What kind of car do you like?
Well, I mean, I've had a whole. Right now, I have a truck because it's functional and I need it for like camping and stuff. But I mean, I had a C55 AMG Mercedes.
Now, was that an older one with a supercharger or the newer ones? That's a supercharged one?
Yeah. Well, no, it was standard. I did a whole bunch of stuff to it. It's actually on my other YouTube channel, but I put a Kleeman supercharger on it. It was naturally aspirated. I had Brembo big brake kit on it. I did a whole. When I wasn't spending money on tech, I was doing autocross, and I wanted to have something very unique when I took it autocross and different race events. And so I took a standard C55, which is naturally aspirated, and put way too much money into it.
How many pounds of boost were you running? Did you have an intercooler? I knew you had to have an intercooler, right? I mean, all the other the E55s run a big intercooler on their superchargers.
Yeah. E does. The C's at the time didn't.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I used to do car stuff too. What a waste of goddamn money.
It's a big money sink.
Every dollar you put in, you lose that plus more. So if you put 20,000 of mods into your car is worth 40,000 less. Shit you not.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. You have to part the car out to ever get your money back. You have to split it into parts. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I when I sold it, I mean, we probably. Oh man, I probably had. I mean, the car was like 40, and then I probably put another 35, 36,000 into it. I sent it to. So I was like the runner. There was a TV show on in the U.S. called Bull Run, and in season 2, I applied because they would take these different teams and they call it like Team BMW, Team whatever, and they'd race across the U.S. And it was all done through Goldberg was like the person that was like the announcer on it and stuff. But I was like the person that they were about to choose, and they ended up taking another team over me. This guy with a Lambo showed up, and they took him because he was going to race his Lambo and do stupid shit with it. And a lot of people want to watch a Lambo do that, not some dude in a 4-door Mercedes. But I sent it to Colorado Springs to get like completely tore down, make sure it was good to go, and probably spent, I don't know, $8,000, $9,000 there to get that done, just to have it ready. And then the producers called back and said, yeah, we chose somebody else. I'm like, oh, crap.
That's fucked.
And then
You're not the first guy to get fucked by that. Like, Dan Bilzerian got fucked on some people that he was supposed to have a part in a movie and get X amount of screen time. They fucked him on it. He had to sue him. And as far as big 4-door Mercedes go, Kim.com actually ran the Gumball Rally with either a 2-door or 4-door black Mercedes, and won it. So, but that dude's such a scammer that I don't know what type of cheating he might have done. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah, no. It was just cool. I had the pass from work. I mean, at the time I worked for Anheuser-Busch, which is a big beer company, and they were they were supporting it. I mean, they were like, yeah, man, you take the vacation you need, that'd be cool. We'll cheer for you. And I was like, this is freaking sweet.
That sounds pretty
And
sweet.
and then it just fell through. But I don't regret what I did with the car. I mean, I had a ton of fun. I had tons of autocross stuff. I recorded everything. I had GoPros when they first were coming out. I put them all in the car. I mean, I have that car. Nobody knew what it was at the time because we're talking 2005, 2006 timeframe. Those weren't real super popular cars. Like the E55 AMG came out in 2003, and it got a little popularity for Mercedes, but nobody really knew what the C55 was. And since I had close to 500 horsepower in it, and nobody knew what it was, and I didn't do any appearance stuff on the back. It was a little lower because we had Brabus suspension on it, but I mean, I would go to events, the thing's running low 12s, high 11s, on 120 miles an hour. Nobody
It's
knew,
fast.
like, what the hell?
It's fast. I mean, I think Ferraris were running 12s in that year, that time frame, those years. I think Ferraris were just running 12s as well. I think like 12.2.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, that's the time. I mean, people look at it now, and there's cars that could do 11 all day long. You get the P100D Teslas that are doing 10s at 130.
Strip them and do 9s. Take the fucking rear out and run 9s.
2005, 2006, it was a fast car. I mean, I was going to this. We did this one race event. It was a charity race event. It was they donated all the money to the local cancer research center in Indianapolis, and it was called I don't know what the hell was it called. Winged Warriors. Yeah, it was a Winged Warrior event, and it was like domestic versus import. And they would have like you go out to this airport.
Domestic wins, except for the 2JZ.
High speed, a 0 to 100 to 0, a huge autocross track and a drag race, and they would take all your times on all those different events, and then they would sum them up, and then they would see where you got in the list. So it was not just like you go race your car. It was like all these disciplines, and those kind of events were just popping up, and now they're everywhere. You can go to all kinds of events like that, but you spend a lot of money doing that kind of stuff.
I think it's funny, the guys that modify their engines but not their brakes. So like if you actually get your car up to fucktarded speed and you're going 155 and then you have to stop, you got to stand on your brakes for so long. It takes forever to scrub speed from 155, dude. It's crazy how long it takes.
And they probably fade out too.
Right, you get to do that once, and then you better not need to do it again very soon because your pedal will just, it's not going to work, right? So I would drive my GS 400 so hard that the brake rotors would glow red when I would park. And I don't think I've ever seen a stock car with glowing brake rotors before, ever.
Oh, yeah.
So, and this is before I modded it. Like
those steel rotors usually don't last after they glow red.
Yeah, they had a lot of little micro cracks on them and stuff. But I mean, the car ran better before I modded it, and after you put a roll cage in it. So I put a roll cage in the car, and then upgraded the brakes, and then everything was worse, right? So now you're not using normal belts; you're using harnesses, and if you get into an accident, you don't realize it, but your head's going to hit that fucking bar. So now you're concerned with like, should I Armaflex it and put something over the bar so I don't bang my head on it? Then you had to take down your rear view mirror for the bar. So now you've got a weird rear view mirror under, right? And then if you jam on the brakes, I got this left to right diving, oscillating shit. I'm like, oh God, why doesn't anything work right? It's all bad. Like I've ruined my car. So I would never modify a car again. I would never, ever do it again.
Yeah, I'm out of that kind of game now. I mean, it's, it was funny going to an event like that. And they don't do a ton of them like that, but it's so funny because guys would bring really powerful cars and they were great in a straight line. And then they would go to their next, event, because there's all this huge area, Indianapolis race area and O'Reilly Speedway. And they would be, great on the quarter mile, and then they would have to go do autocross. And you just watch the body roll and just them getting thrown around. And then the high-speed slalom, I mean, people were like, that are not, they might be good drivers on a straight line, but when you start doing 70 to 80, there's like a slalom speed, and people don't understand the physics sometimes, I think.
Just blow through the second cone.
They just hammer down, and then they go to do the slalom, and that first turn, everybody spin out. And you're on a big runway, so if you spin out, it wasn't that big of a deal, and you're probably doing 70, below 75, something like that. But you know, you get a little clinch factor. But it was just funny to see like the cars that were best set up. I mean, guys would bring like spec Miatas, which were, you know, that were monster versions, which would have like a 5-liter in it. So it was like a big V8, and it's a Miata.
LT1.
And you could lift a third wheel. You could live, you know, you'd be 3-wheeling it around all the turns because it's so stiff.
Right.
I mean, those guys did great on all the events, but
Miata's good bang for the buck if you want to make corners. So somebody asked, what are your thoughts on autonomous vehicles? Are they coming, and what impact will they have? And what kind of public backlash will it face? Well, people are actually really bad at driving cars. So making machines that can drive cars better actually isn't as hard as you think if you're on a highway. When humans are actually better than computers are in edge cases. So very bad conditions, or, you know, a cop is directing you by hand, right? Or the road's closed and there's particular obstructions. Humans are good at that. Like, oh, here's a new thing I haven't run into before. That humans are good at that. But like, oh, my phone rang, or oh, I'm tired. Humans are terrible at that. So a self-driving car should be able to greatly, greatly, greatly reduce collisions, which kill thousands of people, many thousands. So the number of people that have driving jobs in the United States is over 3 million. It's the most common profession that exists in the United States is driving. So the worst possible displaceable job in to some degree is the one that's the most common. And so the machines are coming fast to take the jobs of the people who have the most of that job, right? 3 million people, more or less, should get displaced by computers driving cars over some reasonably medium time frame. Let's call it 8 years, 10 years. It means that they need to train for new jobs, or we need to subsidize and help them perform that transition and realize that it's not just the drivers that are having their jobs come for by machines. It's people that make t-shirts. It's people that make shoes. It's everything. And in the short term, it's going to be a lot of pain for people that aren't in the capital class. And it's going to be a lot of pleasure for people that have the money to buy the machines. So early Bitcoin adopters probably going to do just fine. People that work for a living, not just fine. So we need social improvement and a social safety net to allow all of the great GDP gains and improvements to society from mechanization and computerization and automation to filter down, or I hate that phrase. I don't like that hierarchy, the top-down shit. We need those benefits to get to everyone because it benefits everyone. So, you know, the goodness of a society can be judged by how it treats those people most in need, the mentally ill, the unemployable, and, you know, there may be a point when human beings in general are not employable. And unless you want to see a revolt or a real bad state of affairs, let's have everyone have a good life, right? So I'm for, you know, I've got a video on saying, hey, we should take some portion of the military and teach them how to drive nails instead of bullets and just build some houses. People need places to live. Some contractors are going to be super pissed, but we need fucking houses. You know, it's not fair that a kid that just graduated college can never get a fucking house ever because he can never afford it. It's not fair. It's not good. You know, our children shouldn't have worse lives than their parents. And financially, that's one way they have it worse. You know, you used to be able to graduate high school, get a job, buy a car and a house. Now you can fuck yourself with a master's degree. No one cares. So if you want to see that get fixed, that's what governments are there to do. The rich capital class, of which I'm a member, is going to do just fine with everyone still being helped. We're going to do better, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's really hedging into what I was talking about earlier about trying to partake in some of that transition and help nurture that transition. I mean, because, I mean, a lot of the common questions I get, especially at like the blockchain forum and stuff, you know, when people start talking about the the movements of like cryptocurrency, and you got the real extremes on anything. You can talk about anything. There's extremes on everything. When they're like, oh, screw the government, it's all anti that whole crowd and stuff. And what I try to figure out is like everybody knows that there needs to be change. I mean, there's no doubt that there needs to be change, and there's stuff that's transitioning that's going to happen if we like it or not. It's just a natural order of things. I mean, the stuff that like Elon's working and expanding, and what he's talking about is very, very true with regards to the evolution of that technology is going to displace people. So there needs to be a solution for that. And then what is the path for those folks? How do you start transitioning? I mean, anytime I'm moving big systems, you got a living, breathing system, and you got a target. And I got to figure out how to keep that living, breathing system working, functioning, not impacting them, and then move it into something that is going to be ultimately the future state. The as-is and the to-be-piece, and really laying out that on a social structure, figuring out what people can do, how people can expand and be part of things. When people ask that question, when are driverless cars and that stuff, are those really going to take? Absolutely, they're going to take. When it's only going to take you a few times to get in one and say go, and then it goes and it shows up and there's no event, and you're going to be like, well, shit, why am I not doing that every time? Yep. It changes things. It's an evolution. It's the next stage of the way things are, and people are going to immediately gravitate towards that when you have something that functions and works. And I mean, you look at and I hate to keep using Elon, but I mean, Jesus, the guy's knocking him out of the park right now. I mean, when he talks, we're launching 16 shots to space so far this year. We're going to do 30 next year. We're already half the world's people are coming back to him because it freaking works, right? He's built a mechanism that functions. You can take whatever. Yes, it's a rocket. Yes, it does these things. A lot of people never cared about any of that. We're caring now because it's moving society in a large scale, and you start looking at that adaptation down towards cars and all that kind of stuff. It's going to not take people very long to go, that works and I want to be part of it and I want to do it. And then you got to answer the other thing, what happens with everything else with it, when you displace it.
Yep, I agree. So, chat, thanks for coming by. We've done 2 hours. The questions you guys presented were great. Mr. BitsBeTrippin, sir, thank you for your video work and educating people and onboarding and helping them make better decisions. Buy
Absolutely.
this, don't buy that, stuff like that. Yeah, buy Bitcoin Moon, obligatory. I guess that's it. Hey, man, it was really good talking to you. And thanks, everybody, for coming by.
Conversation.
See you, man.